Hi, Can here, mixed media artist and sketchbook lover, and I'm here today to revamp my little travel palette. So I recently got back from a trip. This is a palette I had set up for that, but I think I want to make a few adjustments before I take it out again. So right now I'm just watching what's currently in there so that I can kind of reevaluate, see what stays, what needs to be replaced. In general, I was pretty happy with this, but I do have a few little adjustments in mind that I want to make. So swatching out these colors. At the end, I will have a palette with labeled with the colors I have, with what I end up with at the end, so stay tuned for that. I'm making these swatches in an Art Creations sketchbook. Watercolor works okay in there. I would say it's not spectacular, but it certainly works good enough for swatching. But do remember, this is kind of a cream colored paper. It's not a pure white paper, so the colors may look slightly different than they would on white. So I'm just labeling this page as my current palette, and then I'm looking at the things that I'm thinking about adding, kind of comparing them with colors, that I already have. I want a balance of variety, and there's a lot of colors I really love, but also some of those could be mixed. Some of them are kind of similar to something I already have. So that's what I'm trying to evaluate here. So this is Potter's Pink, which I seldom use entirely by itself, but it is a wonderful mixing color. Another one that I am considering adding is this Phthalo Turquoise. It's so intense, such an intense color, and I actually had it in my current watercolor palette, but I just had a dab of it up on the lid, on the mixing surface. So I think I want to put an actual pan of it in there. Another one that I know I want to have in there is Lunar Black. I did really miss having it. I have it in my big palette, and I kind of didn't realize how much I use that to mix with other colors. Like, it makes a wonderful green mixed with the yellows, or to deepen a blue, make more of a Payne's gray, or there's just so much you can do with it. And so I did really miss having a Lunar Black. That's one I want to add. Then I also really like this Cobalt Turquoise. It's a core color, brand color, and it's so beautiful and intense. But as you can see, it's similar to the Phthalo Turquoise. So I've got to kind of evaluate whether it's worth having a whole another color there. I have to be choosy of what I want to fit in this palette. Okay, this is actually the Potter's Pink. The big blob to the right was Potter's Pink mixed with Haze Schminky Haze Pink, and just kind of seeing what that color would do. I'm trying to be better about what are the most valuable colors for mixing instead of just looking for convenience. Although I certainly will include some convenience colors, because if you're doing on-the-go sketching, journaling, those convenience colors are really important then as well. So it's just a kind of a balance that I'm trying to achieve there. This one is Sanguine, which is a beautiful color, but I had the transparent brown oxide in the palette, so I'm just kind of double checking to see which of those I want. This is a mix of the Sanguine with the Potter's Pink. The thing I really love about the Potter's Pink is that it's very granulating, so anything I mix it with granulates really nicely. I'm not super brand loyal. There's several brands that I like, and I just pick according to the color that I like, and not necessarily by brand. I do like many of the granulating colors of Schminky, some of their special granulating colors. I do use a lot of Daniel Smith and really love their colors. I also have Holbein, and those are the three main colors. Oh, and Core by Golden. Those are, I guess, the four main brands that I use probably the most. But I definitely will include other colors as well. Here I'm mixing alizarin crimson with the potter's pink. I'm just trying to decide whether that potter's pink can earn a place in my palette or not. I'm reminding myself what the alizarin crimson looks like by itself. Another thing that I want to have in my palette is some colors that are very intense, and then other colors that are a little more transparent or lighter in how they go on. So I'm looking for a variety in that as well. I'm referring back to this list that I made while I was in Santa Fe, thinking about what I might want to change in my palette colors. And I had, I think, about 4 colors I thought I wanted to be sure and add, and then which ones I wanted to leave out. So I'm kind of comparing that with what I've swatched here, and kind of just taking a look what, like, some of these, the really neat thing about an Art Toolkit palette, which is what I'm using here, is they have different size little pans that all fit together. So like you can get a whole assortment of pan sizes in there. And I'm trying to decide at this point, because I do have an empty one, whether I want to just start fresh or go ahead with the one I have. So that remains to be seen. Pretty irrelevant. I also have this little tiny one, and so I'm kind of trying to decide, do I want to just take one on my trip? Do I want to take one plus this little one? Do I want to take all of them? You know, I'm just kind of trying to figure out what I really need to have along. I'm not much of a minimalist when I come to art supplies, so it's a little bit of a struggle for me to pare down. So now I'm just looking at what fits nicely in this little Art Toolkit pencil pouch. And I can fit 2 of these. It's actually their medium-sized palette. I do not have one of the large ones. But I can fit 2 of those pretty nicely in there. But I'm not sure if I need that much in there. I also have a sketchbook and, you know, my other pencils. So I'm also thinking about putting this little one in there, because there's a few other things I want to carry too, like post-it notes and a little water spray bottle. So that's what I'm trying to figure out here. So now I've narrowed down the possibilities, but I'm going to just start by color groups, prioritizing which ones need to go in. And so I'm doing blues here, trying them out, and you know, I not only need to decide which ones I'm including, but what size of each one I want to have, and testing out. This is a cerulean blue, and I have a French ultramarine and an indigo that I'm looking at. So here I'm mixing some of the lunar black with the actually Prussian blue here, and seeing what look I get with that. The indigo was mixed with haze blue, and then I have just the plain haze blue by itself, which is a fun granulating color, but rather light. And then I also try the indigo by itself, which you know, the Prussian blue plus the black kind of gives a similar color family. So basically it boils down to, what do I want to choose to have to mix, and what do I want just to be conveniently available. So now I'm going ahead and filling the pans and kind of laying them out on the page as they will be in the my new palette, kind of planning it out. And I've got these little tiny tins, and I have the French ultramarine, which is a good mixing color, the cerulean blue, which is a favorite, but I have little pans of those, and I've kind of opted for having little pans of more different colors and less big pans. Now I have all my pans laid out and labeled, and some of them have already been filled but still need more added to them. And then some are empty pans ready to be filled. So one thing that was a limitation on these is I could only use paints that I had tubes. I'm starting to buy paint and my watercolors in tubes more for this very reason. I've had a lot of half pans in the past, which have been great and are great in my my big main palette, but for these little travel palettes, I love being able to fill my own little pans. As I get them filled, I'm just trying to figure out the ideal arrangement of them in the little travel tin, like what makes most sense in how I would use them. So I generally am going to put the warmer colors to the left and the cool colors to the right, with the white somewhere kind of in the middle. I have the white and the tundra violet and the lunar black, which, and it's actually a white gouache that I'm using, a Holbein gouache. And I have those kind of all grouped together in the upper right corner by the time I end up here. So that's what I'm getting all sorted out and figured out now as I fill these. I use a toothpick to get the paint into all the little corners, and then sometimes after I'll leave these to dry for a few days, and then sometimes I am able to add more in too, and sometimes that's easier than trying to get the whole pan filled in one go. Making some last minute decisions about browns here. I have this new haze brown, and it's a raw umber, I guess, that I had in there before. And you can see the difference between the two. The raw umber is a much warmer brown, while the haze color is more of a almost a gray brown. And then of course the two mixed together somewhere in between. And what I ended up doing was just topping off my raw umber pan with some of that haze brown. And you know, as I use it, then it'll get a little more mixed together. I have my new pans all filled up and ready to go, so the only thing left to do is to make a little palette card that I can refer to of what's in these. And I am going to just divide them up as the pans are. Since they're different sizes, I'm just going to try to arrange this little card with the actual size and shape of each palette. It's pretty handy that this is a business card size pan, and if I break it down into half-inch sections, then the smallest ones are 1/2 by 1/2 inch, while the bigger ones are, you know, 1/2 or 1 inch or any increment of that. So now all I have to do is to draw in the specific little palettes. Went ahead and made a second palette as well, or swatch card as well, and one I will write the names on, and the other I will just keep as a color reference. Let me know what you think of this color selection, and if you're interested in a closer look at what these are, I've included the swatch card for you here at the end. Thanks for watching.